All right, real excited to have my next guest on the Sports Card Nation podcast. He's made his claim to fame in the music industry. He's been a card collector even as a kid, and now he's doing great things and big things in the hobby. And real happy to have him on the show. We're going to talk a little bit about both sides of that. But DJ Skee, welcome to Sports Card Nation.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you for having me, man.
Oh, thank you for making time. I know you're a busy guy, so I much appreciate it.
All good.
I didn't realize this till recently. I'm a New York City kid, Brooklyn, Canarsie to be specific. I'm now here in the Syracuse area, Central New York. But you're born in New York. Can I ask where?
Born in New York City.
Okay. All right. So you got a little bit. We got that in common.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then went to Minnesota and became big there, and raised there, and it's your hometown, and a lot of that comes out in what we're seeing with some of the Project 70 and more to come, I might add. So,
Oh,
but
yeah.
uh, I mean, you've done so many things. If I just sat here and gave out all your accolades, it'd be 40 minutes, and we wouldn't get to talk about anything. So, but you've worked with brands, you've introduced music stars, to radio play. Your resume speaks for itself. If anyone don't know, I'm not sure how that is, but check that out. I'll save some time and tell them to do that. But you're doing big things now in the hobby with your own show, Card Clout. You're one of the proprietors of Cards and Coffee Breakers. Who knows what's next? Project 70, and that thing that piggybacked off the Project 2020 and all that. But as someone that's come from the music industry and sort of made your bones there, do you see any similarities now doing like big things in the hobby? Is there anything you can take from your music career that kind of similar to the hobby that gives you maybe an advantage, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've always had a skill. My like unique skill set has always been identifying trends and talent early on, and for me, more so than even the music industry, is I was heavily involved in like the sneaker side of things. And there's just so many parallels. It feels like between that like sneaker culture and now what we're seeing with sports card culture, and a lot of those people that moved into that were there. And if you look at music, like DJs have always been kind of the people that introduced it and connect the dots between artists and fans. And DJs were always some of the biggest sneakerheads, right? Like you look at people like Clark Kent, DJ AM, who passed away. These people are, big, ambassadors for the shoe world. I'm seeing a lot of DJs now like evolve and get involved in the card scene too. We're always, as DJs, it's kind of our job to be on top of things for the culture and kind of be that access point and that entry point for a lot of people. So I think that there's a great analogy between music and kind of and DJ specifically in what you're seeing with cards in the hobby.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the sneaker culture. We've seen some of those folks kind of come into the card hobby. I love it as been doing this almost 40 years. Now there are others, let's be honest, that
Yeah.
are not so welcoming to the new. I don't even want to say the sneaker culture, but really sort of the new people in general, sort of territorial. Hey, I've paid my dues. I've been here first. My take, Scott, is that this hobby needs as many people as we can get. The more transaction going on, the stronger the hobby's going to be. We've seen crazy growth, albeit during a worldwide pandemic, even, which when you think about that, is just mind-boggling. And so, to me, whether someone buys a card on Monday and sells it on Tuesday, or buys it on Monday and keeps it for 5 years and then so it's their stuff, what they want to do with it. I always say on this show, hobby how you want, as long as you're doing it above board in the right way and you're not hurting anyone or ripping anyone off. I say the more the merrier. But there is a faction, I think, of the hobby that's maybe not as welcoming of that. And I know I've heard those folks mention sneakerheads or in a derogatory sort of manner. It's kind of, your take on that. And, you don't have to convince me because I've already said that I'm welcome. But even to those that maybe think that which I don't agree with, but maybe that faction is damaging the hobby, the flippers, if you will, as they're also kind of referred to.
I mean, look, it's a challenge, and you see that in every sector. And it's there's certain people gravitate towards the sneaker culture, right? Because it was easy to make money. You buy a pair of shoes that you can buy in store for $200 and sell them for $1,000. Why would you not? Now you see the same thing, right? That's why Target had to stop selling cards. People can just go buy a box of cards and instantly sell them. So, I don't know if that's necessarily unique to sneaker people coming to the hobby, or the hobby becoming popular, which is what we all want. I think there's definitely issues in terms of figuring out how to, it's one big thing that I'm passionate about is I fell in love with sports as a kid, and cards were the way that I interacted with it. That was a big, big part of my life and hobby, and it was my first entrepreneurial endeavors, and taught me so many lessons that I've taken with me the rest of the life. And I think one of the things that we really need to make sure is that cards are accessible to this next generation and fun, and it's not there. So I think that's probably not just unique to that. I think, of course, there's going to be people that jump between. I don't know if it's necessarily hardcore people from sneakers. They might have been there before, but before that, they were probably doing something else, right? Like there's people that are always going to be opportunistic, and it's a hustle, right? Like it's tough to be mad at people for going out and doing like that obvious stuff, although it does suck when it just they're taking away products from people that we want out there. But I think just in terms of an influx, and the hobby needs to, like everything, it's going to evolve, and it needs to, in order to stay relevant and to appeal to that new group of consumers. And that's really one thing that I've been trying to do, is bring people in. It's not easy to get into it when you're talking about grades and so many cards and so many layers and so many intricacies that you need to know when you dive in. And that's why for me, it's creating things like Cards and Coffee. That's a new breed of retail shops and a new breed of breaking that is more targeted for this generation. It's like creating shows like Card Clout that, while you as a card aficionado will appreciate, it also is accessible to somebody that knows nothing about cards and will hopefully draw them into it. And same with even the stuff that I'm doing with Tops. It's funny because there's certain people that have no idea about the players. They just love the musical elements that I'm tying into that. And conversely, the same in the hobby. And for me, I'm trying to kind of play in that middle ground and kind of connect all of those cultures and serve as this like kind of rod in the middle. Because I think it is, as you said, like, look, we want to empower the next generation and get them as excited as we were, and show them how much fun can be had and how great it can be.
Yeah. I'm not getting any younger. At some point the music's going to stop to using and we need that next, like you said, that next generation to take the baton and keep running it forward, and then those behind them. And so I welcome, I started as a 7-year-old kid 41 years ago, a long time ago. But
I was about 6 or 7 too. So
yeah, and so I want to, kids. I know it's a big importance to you. It's a big thing to me. And one thing with Card Clout, with that show, great job. I like what you're doing there. You don't have to be like 100%. You can watch that show and not be even let's say in the hobby, and still appreciate the show. Kind of it mixes. Both worlds kind of come together on the show. So even if you're music or a celebrity, whoever, the guests that you've had, you can watch that show and still laugh, chuckle, and enjoy the content without being in the hobby. And like you said, maybe someone watches that and says, man, I didn't realize this about card. Let me look more into this. And if so-and-so's doing that, right, Snoop Dogg, whoever else, hey, if it's cool to him, it's probably cool to me. Let me look more into that. Or I used to collect. I got, I don't have them no more. Let me rekindle that. I think that's so important to be an ambassador and an advocate of the hobby and culture in general. I think you do. You don't need me to tell you this, but you do a tremendous job with that, and I think it's important.
Oh, thank you, man. That's great to hear, and that's what it's all about, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Now, do you have, now knowing who you are and what you're doing in hobby, do you have a lot of maybe artists or celebrities kind of reach out? Hey, I want to start collecting. What do you recommend? Can you help me out? What should I buy? Hey, I'll give you this amount of money. Hook me, get me some stuff you think will be a good start. Do you get a lot of that maybe?
Yeah, people are taking notice, especially with what's happened the past, year or so, right? Like the scene is just accelerated. So a lot of people are asking questions. And that's one thing that we're trying to help bridge the gap for is, again, it's kind of confusing to get in if you haven't been into cards. You don't understand what grading is and what different companies are and which ones are meaningful and which cards, why this card is meaningful and why a refractor, why a numbered one, what's so much more special about this versus that, like there's all the intricacies that we know. We're like, oh, that's a refractor, that's numbered, that's a PSA 10. They could be like, well, it's graded 8 by some off grading company that's not a refractor, not numbered. Why is there a difference of $1 million in prices of this? Don't I have the same one? And it's like, look, we all get hit up by the people. It's like, oh, must have $1 million in my collection. Come look in my garage. And you're like, it's all old 80s, 90s junk era whack stuff with very few things of value. So I get a lot of interest and a lot of people hitting it in. There are some artists that are very familiar. Believe it or not, a lot of the younger kids and younger artists seem to really have grown up and be a lot more familiar with like a lot of the Pokemon style cards and some of the other non-sports cards, which is great. It's not necessarily a field that I really know or focus on. I'm really focused on the sports side of things, is that's kind of my foundation. But there are others that are really starting to get into it. And I think it's going to, as time goes on, and especially with some of the things that we're trying to do. And that's why I think once the world opens back up and they're able to actually go out to our shop and see it, because our shop is right where our Dash radio headquarters are, where all these artists are coming all the time. I think it's going to, really open people's eyes once they see it in person in terms of an artist perspective.
Yep, and you got the store in L.A. and you got one Salt Lake City, and so I got to ask, being an East Coast guy, is there another one? Maybe eventually, East Coast somewhere potentially.
Oh yeah, we're working on it right now. Sooner than later.
Okay, all right. I won't press you. I mean, I don't want you to give away the secret recipe, so to
You're
speak, but.
good.
But you do, even with the store, you do it a sort of a different way. It's a modern version. There's always something going on between breaking. You carry, like you said, whether you're not into the sports cards and maybe into the non-sports end, or obviously the sports cards. There's something that covers everybody, and so I know you. And from whether you get into a break or you just want to buy a pack of cards, you're there for all avenues for someone in the hobby. You don't really shut anybody out, and I think that's important. Just talk about really how the cards are called. How did that all come about for you?
Sure. So I was looking at actually I had a retail space at our Dash headquarters that we use as a pop-up store, and it was shut down during the pandemic since we couldn't do physical experiences, and got connected with Dan Fleischman, who was looking to open a card shop down the street at the W in Hollywood. And I basically said, hey, we have the space. I was thinking of doing a ski sports gallery where I was going to put a bunch of cards and memorabilia, and I didn't really know kind of a store, but more of just kind of like really like a high-end art gallery. And we just got randomly connected, and he told me what he was trying to do. I didn't really have the energy to handle operations or deal with the retail component of a store, as it's a grind, especially on the break side. Like, it's just so much work. And they had a whole vision and team, and I was like, look, let's team up. And it all kind of came together, and we brought in Aoki, who's a mutual friend of both of ours, and luckily it's worked out well.
Yeah. When you think, I don't know, I've never been to Hollywood, so it's easy for me to say or play armchair. I had a store way when in the 90s for 6 years. But when you think Hollywood, sports cards really not the first thing, that comes to mind necessarily. You think of like Rodeo Drive and Gucci and purses and handbags and men's clothes, all that high end stuff. As we both know, cards are high end too. But again, it's not the first thing we think of when you think Hollywood. Was there any trepidation there? Did you think, like, can this work here? Or were you really fairly confident, like, this is the hobby so worldwide now and exploding that even here, we're going to have no troubles type of deal?
Yeah, I mean, we're lucky we already had the space, so it wasn't too big of a risk
Yeah.
for us so we kind of had an advantage jumping in for it. And the thought process was, it's the most famous street in the world. There's so many tourists there, and there's so many locals, and there was really nothing in the area. And we really wanted to open a card shop. Well, there's a lot of great card shops in Southern California. We wanted to create something that was more boutique-ish and really targeting kind of the next generation of consumers, and is in an area where all these people live, right? Like Hollywood and Vine is where every, influencer and kind of an emerging star, when they come to LA, it's where they stay and where they first live. It's kind of their pass through. All the clubs and restaurants and things are there. So it's right in the mix of kind of connecting with this next generation, as well as all just crazy foot traffic and just a high profile location.
Yeah, and put it's on the map and doing big things, and now in Salt Lake City, and like you said, maybe we'll see something moving eastward as well. So looking forward to that. So let's get to Project 70. You're doing a tremendous job with that. I know you interviewed last year when Project 2020 came out. You interviewed a lot of those artists. Some I believe you probably knew even beforehand, and then others you probably got to know. And here you are with Project 70, and you're in the project. And the one thing I love what you do is you mash up the music side of things with the sports culture, and how you put those together is just I love it.
Thank you,
It's
man.
each time there's a new release, like who's gonna who's gonna be with who. Talk about how that actually came about with Tops, and obviously they knew you already, and then how did you get on Project 70?
Totally. As you mentioned, I started off doing an interview series for Project 2020, which I thought was just a really cool project. I know, people are, and it obviously had its moments, highlights and lowlights last year, right? With the challenges of, overproduction and hype and people coming in and just insane print runs and stuff. But overall, when I first saw the project, I thought it was awesome. And I love anything that, I'm a big art fan. Obviously, I'm a big fan of like culture, and to recreate these iconic cards, but to appeal to a new generation and bring them on, I thought was genius. And I think people are going to look back on that project as something that was game changing and really brought in a whole new generation. And even if people weren't buying it day one, they were familiar, getting more familiar with cards, and it started making it accessible to an entirely new demographic, which I thought was just so awesome. Me being, baseball is my favorite sport, probably of everything. That's what I grew up loving. And, baseball cards are, the foundation of all sports cards. When I got that, when I was doing it, I was like, hey, if you guys ever do another project, like, think of me. And they were like, well, coincidentally, we have this. So then, for me, when I was coming up with the concept for it, I was like, I really do well at sitting at the intersection of all these different things. So I was like, all right, I need to combine music and sports. I do a lot of work with the sports teams and leagues already from like an entertainment side, where we're not doing on the field stuff. It's all off the field stuff. And I was like, people probably won't just want me drawing like an image of a player. Let's recreate it with a musical element of it. And that's why for all my cards in Project 70, it's remixing, these iconic cards and players with iconic music, moments, whether that's album covers, posters, like, just kind of new creations that are inspired from different elements of that. It's been really, really fun. And, I've been overwhelmed by the response from people. It's, just a dream project, and it's at the epicenter of everything that I love. So it's been great.
Now, I got to ask you, have you done all 20? I know you got 4 or 5 out now. Are all 20 done, or are you doing them as you go?
I've got a few more done. I've got the next one drops. The next one drops in June, in mid-June. So that one's done. Let's see. After that, still working through. I kind of have a list of players. I have, my ones I'm for sure doing. I have a couple of those already done. And then there's a few that I'm a little flexible with and still like evolving and changing and seeing how the year operates. Like there's some rookies we'd love to get in there. If some players break out, there's some opportunities to do them, but also you have to be aware, like, you don't want to drop, a player who, is young or new or people are excited about, and he's not playing this year because he's injured. Like Luis Robert, I
Yeah.
had in my short list early on and then got injured. So it just, he's not established enough. And, since he's not playing, it just might not make sense for that. So, it's still kind of flexible, still up in the air. I'm still, I have an idea in my head and everything outlined. The biggest challenge is cutting it down, right? Like when I first got the list from Tops, I was like, oh, great. I sat there all night and came up with a list, and it was about 100 players. And the biggest challenge, like, damn, I got to cut this down, right, to 20. So, I have a lot that I'm going in and out with, and also there's certain rights of players that they're trying to get from retired ones. So,
Yeah, I know you had to get Tops went out there and got Satchel for you, and was
yeah,
able to do that, which is very cool. What you did there, and connected Nas with probably one of the greatest albums. I'm not even going to say rap album. I'm just going to say album of all time. And I love, how you're connecting that and that's not, people think, well, that's probably easy. It's not as easy as you think to merge those two, and do it and be, you don't want to be too blatant where it's not as cool, where it's just subtle. Maybe people catch stuff. It's almost like Easter eggs, right? You catch stuff like, oh, I didn't even notice that, or you hear someone else tells you, did you see that? Did you see the lettering? Or no, I missed that. And that makes it even cooler, is the subtleness, stuff you don't maybe even catch on the initial, look at. And I love that aspect of it too, and even with your onus, wearing sunglasses. I mean, got a modern touch, to it, and something that we've seen that it's obviously it's a legendary, iconic card that we've seen a million times in publications, on social media, and now we see it sort of in a different light, in sort of a a modern, iconic sort of way, and in a different way where we still know what it is, but it puts a smile on our face. And I love how you've done that with all these. And you're a Minnesota, guy, and I know that those guys all mean, all those legends of Minnesota. I'm assuming we're going to see some more. And I know you're a big Griffey guy, and you're a Minnesota legend too. So you're doing the Minnesota legends as a Minnesota legend. But I gotta ask you, even though I'm from New York City, Harmon Killebrew, and I'm older than you, Scott, was one of my favorite guys growing up. And I not to tell you, I mean, I'm hoping, I think he's one of those most underrated guys. When you really, people don't realize how great of a player he was. Yep. Awesome. Awesome. There's one, you can't see it. It's this way. It's in a case, or I get it out. I have a Killebrew too. So when Killebrew, such an underrated player, played during Mantle, so he was sort of overshadowed during the Mantle era. But when you look at, and maybe where he played too was a factor. He didn't play in the bright lights in New York, and he played in Washington and Minnesota. I think he was open. But when you really look at the numbers, I just enjoyed. He played the game the right way. Wasn't really a big, wasn't boisterous. Just went out, played hard. Hit I believe 548 homers when it was all said and done, and during that era, that's even more prominent than what we think of 548 homers in today's live ball era. And just even as a young kid, I sort of gravitated to the way he played. So I'm hoping maybe we see some either Killebrew or some sort of something to him. I think I think sometimes he gets sort of overlooked, and I don't want to say forgotten about. He's a Hall of Famer, but he's sort of, when compared to some of the other players of that era, I think he's very in similar talent, but not always looked upon in the same light. And so little self shameless plug to maybe see a DJ Skee Killebrew.
I'd love to. You hit the nail on the head. He was a great player, and that's one of the challenges. Only so many slots, and you also have to do like supply and demand, right? Like I'd do all Minnesota Twins if it were up to me. Like I'd be picking players like from the '91 team, like Brian Harper and others that people would sell 3 units. So the tough thing is moving in and integrating that. But I would love Harmon, and if you guys are out there and really want to see Harmon, I'd love to hear from you, because that can help sway the decisions. Like there's so many. I mean, if you just go down the Twins, right? Like from all right, you take 91, you have obviously Puckett, you have Herbeck, you have Jack Morris pitching this game. You have somebody like Brian Harper who threw me out of his jersey from the World Series and threw me his batting glove. Then you go Twins over the years. You look at Mauer, Morneau. Of course, we already did Buxton. You have, do you do a new rookie? Do you do a Kirilloff, right? Like, do you do, you go back, Rod Carew, Killebrew. You have even Tony Oliva. There's just so many great players throughout the history of that franchise, and Johan Santana. You do Big Papi early on in his Minnesota days, right? Like, there's so many layers. So, I mean, that's like 20 cards right there. So we do listen to the fans. So if there's demand for Harmon or any player, let me know. Would love to hear it. It helps out. And it helps me justify doing the reason to do these things.
Yep, there you go. I'm going to be the campaign manager for the Killer Brew for DJ Skee Project 70 campaign.
I would love to do a Harmon. So,
everyone, you heard the call to arms. Let DJ Skee know who do you want to see, whether it's Harmon or even anyone else. I mean, we're half kidding with that, but whoever you want to see. I mean, that's you. It's nice to hear that you even ask for feedback. I think that's a great trait that you care what people want to see, and a lot of times you don't always get that in these type of things. I mean, I think we're seeing. I think Project 70, Project 2020, sort of opened that interaction between artists and the general public. That was the one thing I took from that project, is how those artists really opened up, like the banter. Hey, what do you want to see? Many of them did like live streams as they were doing a piece, or who do you want to? I have two versions of this. Which one do you particularly like over the other? And I think we've seen that interaction like we've never seen in art in general, and in the hobby in general. Tops, and with all due respect, Panini, Upper Deck, all these companies very rarely are going to ask somebody, hey, this is the 2022 design, which one do you like? But now they'll release it early and say, here's what the next year's cards are going to look like, but they're not asking anyone's really feedback. They have their own, obviously, design team that takes care of all that. But to see artists, including yourself with Project 77, sort of open that door and let people in is refreshing. And I think hobbyists and I think people in general appreciate that when they get sort of that say a little. They feel part of the process. For someone like me who can't draw a stick figure to save their life, that's about as close to the art world as I'm going to get, is maybe seeing what you're doing, or like even now doing a little politicking for my guy Harmon Killebrew there. But the fact that we even get to do that is says a lot about the artist, yourself included, and the project, and the whole nine. So kudos.
I appreciate that. And that's what it's all about. It's about fun and giving back, right? And doing really cool things and engaging. Like, look, we're doing this for the fans and for the community. So I want to make sure everybody's involved and having a good time. So
yeah, and you mentioned Minnesota. There's a lot of guys you'd like to do. We've seen some spin-offs from these bigger art projects. Maybe we'll see a Twins Legend set by DJ Skee. I'm platforming for it right now for you. So
I mean, it is. I think if there's demand, it's the 30th anniversary of the '91 World Series, the last time that any Minnesota men's pro sports team has won a major championship. So could be good timing.
Yeah, and listen, there's like you rattled off a bunch of them in a minute. There's just so many. People don't realize that, how many people have how many legends have played for the Twins from the early days to even current. You left off a few. You could have went more. You could went more. So that would be if that's something that they you could do. You'll have. Again, you might have problems depending on how big the set they want. You still might have problems getting everyone you want in it. So
I'd love to. That'd be great.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see that. I'm promoting it. So
let's go. Let's go. That's what we need.
So we see grading's a huge thing in the hobby. When I believe when you got started, it wasn't a big thing. There's sort of two sides to the aisle when it comes to grading. I'm big into it. I think it's such a important part of the hobby, whether you like it or not. I understand if someone doesn't buy graded cards, submit graded cards, to each their own, and that's the beauty of the hobby. But one thing we can't say, even that person who's not in the grading, it's still an important facet, thread of the hobby. Your raw cards, sort of, what they're worth or sell for, are in relativity to what we see on the grading side. I think this year, one thing I've noticed as someone who grades cards, and I've seen a little more animosity. I understand some of the grading companies kind of are their own worst enemy and don't do themselves any favors. I get that, but I've seen a lot more animosity from people who don't grade to people who do. I don't know why. I don't kind of reciprocate it back. If you don't buy or submit, that's great. I didn't always do it at one time either. You can evolve and pivot and change it. Have being in the store now, on the proprietor level with the store, just being in the hobby, are you picking up on any of that sentiment? Do you see it?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, look, we've got to be thankful for grading, because that's what was finally able to. I mean, if you're thankful, if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, right? It's like what actually made sports cards investable, because now you're able to serialize these things to manage the populations of cards, and to really be able to do things in an exchange and a business perspective. So it by far like saved the hobby from that business perspective. However, it does also bring in a lot of just flippers and gets it away from people that are just in for the fun. I think if you follow your passions, there's two paths that you do. You're either buying cards as investments, which is fine, and treat them like such. And then if you're just buying them for fun, then just buy them for fun. I think so many people get caught up in grading and doing this. And I think that there's going to be a lot of technologies that come out over the years that are going to enable, I mean, like, look at what PSA just acquired Genamint, which is a company that we invested in early on. And, it's inevitable, I think, that everything goes digital. And so I think a lot of the challenges that you're seeing with pricing, with weights and all those things, and my gut is like, if you're going to keep a card for a while, you don't need to get it graded right now. So I'm like, personally, like, for anything in my PC that's not like urgent, that I'm not like, oh, do I ever want to flip or do those things? Just hold on to it, because the wait times will get better. They will solve it. PSA has new ownership. So there's just no rush. And I think one of the challenges is that people just got greedy and saw so much stuff, and a lot of lacking of knowledge. Like, when you go to PSA, I had the pleasure of going down there, and what an operation. I was actually blown away by the level of I guess how high quality and how many layers of hoops each card did. I was actually blown away. I didn't realize it was that in depth. But I think that they're just sitting on like so many just random cards that don't need to be graded, and not every card needs to be in that. And it's like, people just would like break a card and send in everything, and that's what crushed them, right? Like, and then it's not organized. So I think that there's hopefully that this that things will get better. So I think just being patient with it is key.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen in 2020 the hobby just explode. There are just more people partaking in the hobby. There are more people partaking in grading, submitting cards. I don't think anyone truly, I mean, even if your business is going to increase, I don't think anyone can plan for that sort of influx. I don't care. The best of analytics isn't prepared for that sort of increase. I know some of the cards, I'm sort of a proponent, like, hey, if someone's going to pay for their card to be graded, they can send sort of what they want. Every card might have a different meaning. But what happens of it, like you said, is now we see, PSA have to say, hey, we got to stem the tide here. We're going to have to raise the price and just to kind of catch up and be more consumable and towards the consumer. I get it. I don't necessarily like it when prices get. I mean, who likes when prices go up, right?
Of course. I don't think they do, to be fair to them. I don't think it's their thing. I think they had to do it because it's like, look, it's supply and demand, and because it is done by humans now, they can only take in so much. So they basically raised the price. We're like, look, unless you want to pay something so insane, we're not going to take it. We need to get this cleaned up. And I think they'll fix those things. But I think a lot of it, and that's why I'm telling you, like, if you're holding something and you're PCing it, or just, not in a rush, hold it. They're not going anywhere. It's going to come back. Just, if it's not urgent, just be patient. Don't send it in yet.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. That's actually something I'm doing. I got a
Yeah.
box. I call it my grading box, and then I just, what I do too is I put anything I think are candidates. I sort of put in the box, and when it's time to submit, I'll put my magnifying glasses on and with the light, and then take a closer inspection. And you talk about getting 100 for Project 70, getting 100 cards in 20. It's like that with the grading. You start with maybe 100 cards, but after inspection, maybe you're down to 30, 40 cards, and then you got to decide, do I'm sending them all in, or there are different things you can do. I use multiple companies as well, depending on what the card is, and that. So there's so many things at play. We hear about automation in grading, Scott. I'm not, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I like the human element. I know some people don't. When they get a bad grade, they're the first to, say, well, somebody is bringing emotion to the table. Maybe they have a bad day at home. They get an argument with their significant other. They're in a bad mood. They come to work, and it's a choice. You're on the fence between a 9 and the 8, but because they had an argument that morning, you suffer the 8. I like to think, graders have more integrity than that, but I understand the debate.
It's speculative, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting. When I went down there, I went through those things. I mean, there's at least 3 eyes that look at every card.
Yeah.
There's 2
Yeah.
graders and it's legit. Like, I went through the process and saw it and was blown away by how much work really goes into it. And like, they are not, like, PSA is a legit operation. It's not a guy randomly sitting there in a room. It's full. Like, it is massive. It is no joke. Like, I was actually positively impressed by it. So I think they need to show that off more too, because I always was like, oh, who is it? Just some random guy that assigns it. And of course, there's humans. So there's always elements of error, but the way that they set it up is really, really, I think special.
Yeah. So I guess my stance is it's 2021. We got all sorts of new technologies coming almost every day, every week, every year. I understand that most of them are very good and do a great job at what they're designed to do. I just don't want to see, as someone grades cards, I don't want to see that human element taken completely out of it. If they do develop an AI or a machine that will do the pass through and kind of assign a grade, I still like to see a human kind of that final inspection and say, well, the computer says it's a 9, and just sort of inspector 12, right? The person at the end that says, yeah, I can see that. I agree with it, and sign off on it. Or, hey, it's an 8, or really, I don't see anything wrong with this. We got to like you said, maybe 3 guys like they do. Like, hey, I see this as a 10. The computer put the 9 on it, but let's take a closer look at it and get this right. It's kind of like sporting events where they look at the instant replay and kind of fix the call if they in real time they didn't make the right call. And so I'd like to see, I know some of it's is predicated on speed, and they want this process that's why they're backlogged, and they kind of want to avoid that. But I also think it's important to get the call right, so to speak, too. And that
100%. Yeah, I think it's the opposite, right? Like, you run it through those, and then you have people check and verify and make sure it's there. It's like, I used to be totally against robot umpiring, but over the past couple of years, I think it's inevitable and kind of a no-brainer in baseball, at least for balls and strikes, not for everything. But you still need somebody out there. But it just gets rid of the inconsistencies. Like, there's so many games that you just watch, and you're like, how did they not call that a strike 3, or how did they call that one on both sides, right? And it's just, I don't think it's fair to the players. And if a computer can do certain things like grade the centering better than a human eye can, it can be subjective. And then you have the human computers. I mean, we teach the AI everything that's there. So if you teach the computers, I think it's just the evolution of, it's like, instead of writing it, we're typing it, and they're still powering. Like, we're not going to pass the world over. Otherwise we'd be soulless computers. But they're, I think like to your point, if you add that layer, and then, I think the perfect balance is the mix between both, figuring out how to achieve that.
Yeah, I think, for the 2 cents that's where I think I don't want to see just one over the other. I don't want to see one get canceled out. I think we can still use both. I believe we can still do it in a timely fashion, which I know is a key concern on their end of things as well. So again, every week, you know this as well as I do, Scott. This hobby keeps you on your toes. It's
Oh yeah.
a new announcement, a new acquisition, a new technology. It's keeps me younger than my actual age, I think, hobby wise. And I grew up where you could go away from I say this on my show all the time. You could go away for the hobby for months at a time and literally come back and not really miss too much. You can't do that in today's hobby anymore. You need to play a lot of catch up and do a lot of reading and looking at what I missed in the 2 months and who owns who opened what new products coming out. And
Always
that's the
crazy, right?
fun. But that's the fun is what's next, what's around the corner. And I might make the argument, years ago, while the hobby was fun and it's why I'm still here. It's in a way, we're looking back now, it's sort of boring in comparison to today's day and age with what we're seeing. And gotta stay up on it and enjoy it. And like one of my things I say on the show too is however you want to hobby, grading, not grading, however you want to do it, as long as you're doing it above board, there's no wrong way to hobby. So coming down to the close out here, I always, first off, thanks Scott for coming on and sharing your knowledge and giving some time. I know you're very busy. Give out any social medias, websites where people can find Cards of Coffee, Project 70, your new drops, what you're doing. Take your time as much as you need. Give out all that stuff for those out there.
No, I appreciate it, man. You guys, the best way is just go to djskee.com. We'll post all the tops drops as well as all my companion cards that we'll do up there. And you can get all the info for me. Just social media, most active are Discord #1, but Instagram and Twitter. So just at DJ Skee on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to join my Discord, we have a whole great sports card community on there. Just go to my bio on Twitter or Instagram, and it'll link straight to my Discord, as it's a little long to type out. But that's a great place to interact with me as well as other hobby enthusiasts, especially as we unveil things and do a ton of contests all the time over there. Really excited because we've got this new program with PSA that just launched, where we're doing these 10-10-10s and selling 10 PSA graded 10 Project 70 cards that are signed 10. And I actually went down to PSA. I brought about 100 cards for them to go through and kind of pre-grade and choose which ones were 10, and then I had to sign in front of them. And even the signing process, like I'm sitting there signing in front of them and they're like, "Oh, you didn't close the loop on this. That one's not going to get a 10. You have to redo it." Like, I'm here, really? You're watching it, and like it's me in there, but like that shows the level of detail. So we're doing, for a lot of those cards, we're going to be doing it. We have a great partnership with eBay going right now, where we're auctioning off those 10, there's only 10 of them that are graded 10 in an exclusive colorway. So like the Babe one that's up is is a bronze colorway. We've got one coming for Satchel that's the exclusive colorway. And they're all, especially since PSA shut down, you're not going to find another 10 out there for a while. And these will be the only ones that are autographed and inscribed with the Skee collection on there of these 10-10-10. So that's in partnership with eBay and PSA. So make sure you check those out. And we've got some really cool companion cards for all these coming. There's some great cards coming out. We just had, the mantle drop. We've got some fun ones coming up for the next. It's going to be a fun summer, especially if you're a baseball card fan.
Yeah, man, a lot of things on the horizon. Awesome stuff. I got a chuckle when he said PSA's critiquing your own autograph as he said.
Seriously, I was like, really? And but that shows like the level of detail. They're like, like, I was like, all right, it's, I was blown away. I was like, come on, like I'm here. Like I wouldn't have even thought twice if I was there doing it. So good for them.
Well, DJ Skee, thank you, man. Keep killing it.
Thank you.
You don't need me to tell you that, but you're doing tremendous stuff in the hobby, in the art world, in music, obviously. And everyone, if you want to see Harmon Killebrew at a Project,
yes,
it's got to be
on you.
Yeah, and it's got to be from you. We've seen other artists do Twins got Gregory Siff, who I love, and he actually drew a picture of me. It's on my wall over there. He did a great job with Raj Karu. with the BC. I'm a huge BC Boys guy, being from New York City. So
That's
with
so
the
awesome.
mad hits like Rod Crew, worked that in there. When I saw that, I couldn't help but laugh. I actually messaged him. I said, "Man, that's good,"
That was. He
Yeah,
nailed
yeah.
that.
So we got to see a DJ Skee Killer Brew. I think I'm not gonna lie, I'll be a little disappointed if we
Come on,
don't
let's make it
see.
happen, man. It's on you. Let's
Yeah.
get the demand out there. If there's
All
demand, I'm
right.
all in. It's a good
All
excuse.
right.
I'm trying to choose the last few players, so let's make it
Yeah, I
happen.
think he's one of those first guys you think of when you think Twins. At least for me. So
100%. 100%.
yeah. DJ Skee, once again, thanks, man. Stay
Thank you, brother.
safe, stay healthy, take care.
Done deal. You guys be good.